Hello and welcome to the Soul Freedom Show. And this is we are broadcasting here from California, and we have a very special guest tonight, Michael Grubb here. And this is Lokesh Baba here at Soul Freedom Show. Our website is soulfreedom.org. And our guest here, Michael Grubb, he's an energy master who teaches the arts of telekinesis, healing, out-of-body travel, and many other metaphysical abilities. He's unique that he's open to the critical eye of the public, offering demonstrations, etc. He teaches, heals, and empowers others through Evolved Ministry Institute, offering a series of online courses and personal training. The goal of the Institute is to help humanity to form a unified collective consciousness and to help guide past all limiting belief systems. And with that, hi Michael, how are you doing here?
Good, how are you?
Good, pretty good. How's your day going?
It's been busy. I've been doing a lot of work on the internet. I've been doing a lot of work on the new website. That's what's been happening lately.
All right, sounds good. And have you been, I heard about your new website and your new institute. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Obviously, many people know that I came from AEMI, Avatar Energy Mastery Institute. That's where I had started off with basically teaching with Michael Monk and Francesca, and philosophies ended up changing, and then just basically went off and started doing my own thing. And so what we did, this was something that has been in the works for a while, because before I was ever with Michael Monk, I had a site on Facebook called Evolved Ministry, and then I also had one on YouTube that it was initially called Evolved Ministry, but I just ended up changing it back to my name. But so it's been something that's been works for a very, very long time, and we were planning on doing a forum and thing, but then next thing that happened was Michael Monk got a hold of me and then wanted to do some work, and so we ended up doing some work. It was great. Went out to Texas, where I got to see you and meet you.
Yes.
And also, you know, a couple of other trips. We had a trip in Florida as well, which was really good. And I got to meet a bunch of great people. You were one of them. And so it was probably one of the better experiences I had in regards to teaching. But it also let me know that I needed to go ahead and get things started in a way on my own end, because you know, Mike primarily wanted his teachings featured on the site, and I understood that it's his site, and so I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. And so I just decided at a certain point to basically start my own thing. And initially I was actually going to profit share with Mike and them, but I think that it's just we have went so far our separate ways to do other things that, you know, it probably just won't cross in the middle. But I've got nothing but beautiful things to say about them. Now, as far as Evolved Ministry goes, the site is going to be amazing. It's www.evolvedministry.com, and it will we'll have games. So there will be a gaming section. There will be, in fact, a forum where people can network and trade knowledge and trade abilities back and forth, information. And then there's also going to be, of course, we're going to start an education curriculum, a real education curriculum where people are learning about real anatomy. Okay, they're going to be learning about mathematics and sciences. So we're going to be featuring quite a few things on this particular site that'll be extremely good for people to utilize. There's going to be so many different modalities that we're playing with there. So what we're trying to do is design a site that's going to essentially, every single portion of the site is meant to educate the person. And the other thing that we're going to be offering on the site too is engineering. So they're going to be able to learn how to create their own fractals, create their own sacred geometry, that sort of stuff. So that's kind of what we're featuring there on that site. And of course, online courses, and then I'm also open for face-to-face, in-person courses. So that's kind of how we're operating now.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And also for new listeners, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started into all this?
Oh.
Yeah,
yes. I know. That's kind of a long story, but I know how I can condense it. Well, basically, ever since I was a kid, I can tell you this. Ever since I had memory, okay, I've always been prone towards, I guess, things that are not necessarily normal in this world. And what I say about normal is it's actually 100% normal. It's just that we are not let in on it. We're not told about it. And so the things that I was experiencing back then, they didn't really have a word for it. They didn't have a description for it. And then if I tried to, talk to my parents or anything about it, that it was just kind of a hush-hush sort of thing. But I started off being able to, we'll say, quote-unquote, see spirits. And then, and when it comes to spirits, you have to understand I have a different type of belief system. But we'll just say that I started off seeing spirits, and then by the time I was 9 years old, I ended up having a experience where I was put under. And when I say put under, it was for an operation. And so they had loaded me up with a whole ton of drugs and everything else. And I remember him talking with my dad. It would have been the doctor at the time, the surgeon, talking with my father, telling him that that they had already jacked me up basically with too many drugs, and any more drugs would be a bad thing. And then secondly, it could either kill me or even, possibly even worse. They say there's nothing worse than being dead, but trust me, there's things out there that are far more painful. And so they wanted to make sure that that I went under right. So they ended up hitting me with some nitrous. That ended up being the final solution. And I remember as I was breathing the nitrous in, so with every inhale, I could actually see what I would call the matrix grids showing up. So I was able to see them. They would go brighter and brighter. But the thing is I only had a finite amount of time before I obviously got knocked out and went to sleep. And I remember the last thing before I got knocked out was I heard their voices as the nurses and the doctor were conversing back and forth. I heard their voices, and they went into a literal computer tone. But again, there was no way back then, because at that time I probably was between 7 and 9 years old. There wasn't an internet, and the only computer stuff we had was stuff like Atari. Okay, so there was nothing really to relate my experience to. So when I tried to tell my parents about the experience, it just didn't come out well because they didn't have any idea or any basis of what I was speaking about. Basically, I'd said the nurses and the doctor turned into monsters, and that was about all I had as a description for what happened.
Right.
And so later on in life, skip through my teenage years. Later on in life, I would have some more experiences, and then I started realizing that these experiences that were culminating were because my mind was opening up. So it was about time to try to actually hone what was going on. If there was a way to have these experiences, then there's a way to continue to have these experiences all the time. And so what I did was I started really honing myself in my 20s. So, and for a while, as I was honing myself, I did something a little different back then. As opposed to doing a lot of the kinesis stuff that I'm doing now, I was actually working with mind control back then and being able to call animals and people with my mind and be able to play and tool with stuff. Well, I went that route for a while, only to find out that I went the negative route. Okay, so I started controlling things. Instead of cooperating with things, instead of being harmonious, I was controlling things. And I had an experience of which I'm not going to describe too much, but the experience let me know that I was on the wrong side of the law at that time. I was on the wrong side of the polarity. I did, where I wasn't supposed to be.
Right.
And so what I did after that was I quit. I quit for about 3 years. I didn't touch anything. I'd say it was around 26 or 27 years old. Didn't touch anything. Left everything alone. Now, you were inquiring about the UFO thing, because by the time I turned 30, this was May 5th of 2004, and it was about 12 to 1 o'clock in the morning, and I had a massive UFO experience. I initially went out to a place called Leonard Springs to meditate, and what ended up happening is something down the trail somehow spooked me, and I convinced myself that I wasn't scared, even though I was, and just basically said, well, I'd rather do something else tonight, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump back in my Jeep and go home, and then I will meditate behind my house. So I ended up not going down into Leonard Springs, even though I had driven all the way down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what ends up happening is I go from Leonard Springs back to my home, and then I decide to meditate behind my house. And as I'm driving back there, I see what amounts to what I thought was a security light sitting above a farmer's home.
Mm-hmm.
And from where I was at, I had no way of telling the size. Okay, I was still quite a bit away, and I had no way of understanding or telling the size. And I also couldn't see what this thing was made of, and I just thought it was a light. So I drove up, and I parked at this creek, which is probably about 30 feet, 20 to 30 feet in front of the guy's house, which is where I was going to meditate in the first place. And I kept staring at that light. Now, the thing that happened was, as soon as I got out of the car and I went up to the creek, I focused and started staring at the light. And when I did, it took me about, or not me, it took it about 5 to 10 seconds of me staring at it. And then I think it literally knew I was there, because it ends up rising up above the trees, right above the farmer's home, comes back down, and then comes right up over my head. At that point, I realized what was going on, and I was scared, very scared. I saw a whole bunch of triangular gray lights at the bottom, okay, and it had turned on this particular light section that was in the center, which caused all the animals in the farmer's yard to go absolutely ballistically insane. It sounded like a bunch of stuck pigs. That's what it sounded like, but not a single, nothing ended up happening bad to the farm animals. I ended up going back a week later to talk to the farmer about it, and he said nothing bad had happened, but he had heard the ruckus. Well, anyway, so hearing the animals do what they were doing, it really got to me, and I tried to run. And as I tried to run, something literally stopped me. I couldn't move my arms or my legs on my own volition. And I don't, to this day, I don't know if it was fear. Okay, I'm not going to try to peg what exactly happened. I don't know if it was fear that froze me, or if it was something that happened with the UFO that froze me. But we're talking about something that was about 200 feet in the air. That's all it was. And it was about the size of a stadium, so there was no mistaking what it was. It had a bunch of lights that went around the center, had triangular graded lights at the bottom, and a light at the very top of it that would glow according to how fast it moved. And it was a massive egg-shaped craft. Massive. Mm-hmm. So for about 15 minutes, I kind of was there, stood there against my, we'll just call it against my own will, because I definitely wanted to run. I could feel what amounted to a bunch of muscle spasms happening in my neck, my temple, and so it was speeding up, and as it was speeding up, I could hear all sorts of stuff, but I couldn't tell you what it was I was hearing. It was a bunch of crazy noises, and then came what I would consider, the only way I could describe it would be a download. So imagine that you're sitting there, you're looking at this thing, and then you're frozen. You've got all these muscle spasms happening, and then next thing is you're seeing a million different visions, photographs, all sorts of images, but you can't focus on any single one because it's coming in so fast that there's no way for you to stop it or recognize it. And so that also really, 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 really frightened me. So I remember standing there, it was probably for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm just basically standing up frozen looking at this particular craft. And after about 15 minutes, it cuts off transmission. It's the only way I can describe it. Cuts off transmission. I feel myself jerk just like that and come back into my body. It's not like I had ever even left my body. That was the weird thing. I was still standing there in my body, but it felt as if I had been given back my ability to at least leave.
So it's kind of a bilocation kind of a phenomena, or?
Say that again?
Was it like a bilocation, or, you know, when you transport to another dimension or parallel world or something like that?
One could maybe look at it like that. I can say that I honestly, at the entire time, I was still in one spot, in one space, but I didn't feel necessarily as if I was altogether there. So I couldn't tell you whether it was bilocational. I couldn't tell you whether it was me inhabiting one point to the next. All I can tell you was, ultimately, is that I was frozen against my will, very worried for a while. And later on, I would find out it wasn't necessarily against my will, but during that time, it really was. And so after this situation happened, of course, I went through this period trying to figure out what was going on, because before this, I actually didn't believe necessarily in UFOs. I did believe in aliens, but I believed the aliens were on their own planets, we're on our own planets, And I didn't think that any, there was too much crossover in between. Maybe, possibly, but that was a thing that actually slapped my ego really hard. Because for a while I had it in my head that I knew what was going on, and obviously I didn't. Well, so a year passes by. My girlfriend at that time is not really talking to me. Much of my family stopped talking to me, and quite a few of my friends stopped talking to me because they thought I was obviously weird, because I had this experience that, and the only way I can explain it is either by trying to explain it in a very manic manner, or showing them pictures that I had drawn, or whatever. But any way you look at it, it wasn't really coming across as anything sellable to them. You know what I mean? So May 12th of 2005 comes around, and I have another experience, and they all come back. Well, the interesting thing is before I wasn't able, I just told you that I had been separated from my friends, got separated from my girlfriend. My girlfriend was even a live-in girlfriend. She just wouldn't talk to me. So no one was really talking to me. I finally called someone up because they came back, and I said, hey, I bet you if you were to come over here tonight, you'll get to see him. And I first had to call one person just to get them to, because at this point, no one wants to talk to me. And so I had to just get one person out there to verify, one person. And so I called up one of my friends. I'm not going to say what his name is. We're just keeping him anonymous. But he comes out, and sure enough, he gets to see with his own two eyes that this is very real. It's really happening. The things are really up there. They're really darting around. And then when we decide to go driving or whatever, they're following. And so then I decide, okay, I've got one friend that has admitted to it. Now I need to call a bunch of them. So I started calling a whole bunch of friends over, okay, and getting verification. Now here's where things get kind of interesting, because at this point I'm more focused on UFOs instead of abilities, okay? So at this point I start taking out massive groups of friends, and we're filming. And I've got videos online that if you guys want to look on that, it's YouTube. Just look up Michael Grubb, and there's some UFO stuff in between all of that. Well, I start taking friends out. Next thing I know, that the U.S. military starts to get warm on this whole issue. And I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail about it, but I can tell you this. My home was circled morning, noon, and night, sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, of which I, of course, filmed. A lot of that is also on YouTube that can be checked out. But I was circled morning, noon, and night for a while, and this caused another situation with me and my girlfriend at the time. Because first it was non-belief. My girlfriend didn't believe me. But then she comes around and she starts to see that the stuff is real, so she does believe me. But now comes this new phase, which is she's wondering if I'm ever going to come home, or if I'm going to get kidnapped by some government, military people or whatever, which obviously didn't happen. The only thing that they're pretty much worried about, I guess, was surveillance and probably trying to get as much information as they possibly could. But obviously I'm still here. Nothing bad has happened. Well, this ensued for a while, and then one particular day, I went up on top of my roof. I had this thing that I like to do, which was go up on my roof, and I would love to meditate. Well, I had this one particular thing happen one night where I went up on top of the roof. This is probably 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm up on my roof, and I start meditating, and after about 15 minutes of meditating, I have a really weird fleeting thought. And this is, by the way, there's not a cloud in the sky or anything. I have a fleeting thought, and it's rain. Literally, the second that I have that thought, rain starts pouring down on me while I'm up on top of that roof. And this begins a whole new process of development. Okay, so for a while, of course, I thought that was a coincidence. Anyone would, right? Absolutely. Anyone's going to think that if they think the term rain and then all of a sudden it happens, that they were picking up on maybe something that was getting ready to happen. Well, I went through that whole phase for a while trying to prove myself wrong. And so I went through an entire year of doing stuff and then trying to prove it wrong. Doing stuff, trying to prove it wrong. Well, I ended up having one instance in particular. A guy named Ted Robertson could verify this for you. He used to formerly work with a company called MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. Well, I was meditating next to a tree behind my house one day, and the tree, I don't know, it was about so big around, hard to describe, probably about a foot, all the way around circumference. This tree, after about 15 minutes of me meditating, ended up bending itself in a U around me. And at this point, I realized that something else was going on. Okay, so at this point, I was like, okay, I thought rain happened. I've done this thing with the wind for a little while. That happened. Now this tree bends. Okay, so I ended up calling the Mutual UFO Network, had them come over. They ended up taking some samples, did some stuff. They ended up finding out that there was radiation there. Okay, so they weren't able to find out exactly what caused the radiation. And I'm not going to necessarily claim that I bent the tree. I'm just going to claim that while I was meditating, the tree bent itself in a U.
Right.
So this is kind of how I came across all of this. Is it would always be almost an accidental thing, and then I would work to develop it. Something accidental, then I would work to develop it. Well, and then that's how I came across aerokinesis and pyrokinesis as well. So it was, everything was one instance which would lead me to something which would cause me to perfect it. And so now that's kind of where I'm at. I've been on the stage for quite a while, and I've been perfecting energy movement, aerokinesis, pyrokinesis, telekinesis, you know, the entire kinesi family, if you want to call it that. But it's really just psychokinesis. It's all based upon the same one thing, which is having mental control over oneself. And the more control one has over oneself, the more that shows itself in your external environment. So.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how do you think these powers or abilities would help a person, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? So you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, sure. Well, number one, we got to remember too, in all of this, that as you found out for yourself, every single person has this.
Yeah.
Every single person has it. So there is nothing whatsoever that separates one person from the next. There's nothing that makes one person better than the next. What it is all it is we are the speed of light squared. Okay? Our systems literally have the speed of light squared oscillating up and down all through us. Everything that we have here in this world is made of light. So essentially, it is light that interacts with light. It's always awareness activating particles. And the more particles that you are able to activate through your own awareness, okay, the more things will respond to you in your external environment. So it's the matter of literally controlling yourself. Okay, that's the reason why we call it self-mastery, is you're learning how to dump out factions and portions of your ego. And we're not going to say dumping out the ego. You're not trying to kill the ego. You're trying to learn to control yourself within your own containment unit. And then once you learn how to really master what's going on with the ego, and you start dumping out the negative stuff, you can refill it with a bunch of positive stuff. You're refilling it back with a bunch of universal knowledge, of which we're all made of anyway. We're all made of this knowledge. Okay, so the fact is we live in a world that denies it. We're all in basically denial. And so we have to really just go back to where we started, from where we came from, which is we are everything and everything is us. We're not gods. We're a part of the one thing. And that's the one thing, is we are all creators, and we all have the ability to create whatever worlds that we want, but we're not gods. And that's the one thing that I really feel the need to definitely stress, because there's been some recent things that have come up, and I just want to say that without people really, truly, thoroughly understanding the ego before they embark upon energy development, there could be problems. So you should always learn of the cleansing factor first. You should always understand what the ego is before you embark upon just learning haphazard energy, because energy is one of those things where it can be misused very easily.
Right.
And it can be abused very easily. And you yourself have seen the power of this. It takes merely a thought to make wind go at 40 miles per hour, right? Just a mere thought. And so if you can do that at a mere thought, imagine what you can do if you concentrate. And so that's the thing, is when people are learning this, they really want to learn why first, who they are, and why they want to do this before they get into it.
Wow, that's a very interesting point, because it shouldn't be for ego boosting or powers you want to have, for example, to get more money or things like that. But that's when I feel that people get into a trap, and also they're more open to, like what they call negative entities or whatever, because once you open yourself to these kind of powers, not only can you misuse it, but you're more open to external phenomena. So also, how do you think people can develop these, like besides some techniques that you offer, like for example food and things like that, how do these things affect the learning about these techniques?
Well, rephrase the question one more time because I could barely hear you at the end of that.
I mean, how do you think one can develop these psychic abilities, so to speak? For example, through eating the right food or water, besides the techniques that you teach.
Oh, okay, I understand. Well, yeah, there's all sorts of ways that you can take care of yourself that will make the process easier. Okay, and so the thing is obviously the cleaner your body system is, the easier the energy is going to be able to get in, and it the cleaner that your body system is, obviously too, the more cleaner the energy that's going to be running through you. Now, definitely diet has a lot to do with it. And now I would say that if you're going to, in terms of diet, you want to really buy from farmers markets. You want to buy from places that are more local, because the more corporate that you get with things, the more poisons that you're obviously putting into your system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
You definitely do not want to drink no alcohol. Alcohol is absolutely horrible when it comes to energy movement. At first, it may be okay, but you know how alcohol degrades a person's mind over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it serves as a depressant. And as a depressant, that actually is not conducive towards using energy correctly. Now, the one thing that I can say is this for sure: exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Exercise is absolutely essential if you really want to move energy extremely well. You get certain chemicals that run through your body naturally, and then when you are exercising, it ups those. So whether it be adrenaline, testosterone, estrogen, all those things are extremely powerful, and what they do is they serve to connect you electrochemically into the electromagnetic spectrum.
Right, right. And I can see the weights next to you. I know how much you like your exercise.
Yeah.
And also that brings me to another point about the psychedelics. Like you mentioned, alcohol is definitely a no-no, but how do you think, like, people talk about ayahuasca and DMT and stuff like that, which has helped people grow spiritually. So how do these things or these, elements come into the picture?
Well, number one, I can say this. The people who have existed far before I've ever been on this planet have played with psychedelics, and, this is the reason why we have the term shaman. Psychedelics, of course, are obviously opening doorways. They're stimulating melatonin and serotonin within the pineal gland, okay? Then the pineal gland then secretes dimethyltryptamine, which, of course, we all know what that is. It's, Terence McKenna called it the spirit molecule. Okay, it's the stuff that we experience, 3 a.m. in the morning when we're having REM sleep. It's also the thing that we get to experience 5 minutes before death. We have that magic blast before we go out. Dimethyltryptamine is a very powerful thing, and you have to be very, very careful with that because, again, same thing. If you're opening up too much within your system at once, you can open yourself up to entities, any sort of negative sort of vices. So one has to be extremely careful when they're playing around with any sort of psychedelics. Do I recommend them? Not necessarily. Are they good tools? I know for a fact that people have used them as excellent tools. Some people make it through and do it just fine, but I've seen other people go completely mad.
Right.
So, yeah, it's all dependent upon the person. And the thing is this is the reason why I always say it's probably better to just learn and connect through meditation. But the free will component is there for everyone. So if someone were to choose to do that, I would say make sure that you're in a good, loving environment. Make sure it's a positive environment, okay? If you're able to do it alone, then great, but most people don't like to necessarily do psychedelics alone. They like to have people there to support, which I would agree that it's probably a good idea to have someone there to be able to talk you down if you go too far. But I would say that in terms of psychedelics, they are some of the best ways to break through fast. Okay, so it's kind of like using a cheat code. Um, you know, someone who, let's say, took 10 years to meditate in order to get certain results, another person could probably do 1 year of psychedelics and then be almost at the same place that that person who spent 10 years meditating. So that's kind of what psychedelics will do for you. You just have to remember that as it speeds up that process, it's also speeding up the process of your mind and the things that are within you. You may be able to handle it and you may not. So it's one of those things where I would recommend that you at least thoroughly study before you touch.
Right, right. Just go slow and don't go crazy over it because it can literally make you crazy.
It can, and I've seen it happen on a few occasions. I mean, I'm talking like real bat crazy insane. So
Right, right. Right. So that brings me to another kind of a tangent to that, because you earlier mentioned about your story where you saw the codes and stuff, you know. And I remember at the retreat we were talking about this movie coming out called Lucy, and which, you know, she sees these codes. And I mean, Hollywood brings out all these things which are kind of hidden. Like if you
sure.
don't know what's going on, you will just think it's just science fiction or just a, you know, visual thing. But there's things going on behind the show that these guys, Illuminati or controllers or whatever you want to call them, they show it to you a little bit. You know, they give you a teaser, but they laugh behind your back, thinking, oh, these guys don't know anything. They show you just a little bit. So how do you think, first of all, is there such a thing as Illuminati who are kind of literally controlling us behind the back through subconscious programming or whatever? And the second question to that is, how is Hollywood or these entertainment industry, even the music industry, you know, is affecting us subconsciously?
Okay, great questions. Well, number one, I can say this for sure. Yes, there are illuminated factions of people who are wealthy that are controlling things. Now, whether it be a conspiracy theory or not, what I say is this: it really doesn't have to be a conspiracy to believe that a bunch of wealthy people would conspire to stay wealthy. And so ultimately, that's what it really boils down to. Whatever methods that they use are the methods that they use, but the fact of the matter is they've known for a very long time what this place actually is, which is the reason why they have a certain way of maintaining it through fear, through wars, through ritualistic things. You know, there's all sorts of ritualistic things that they put out there, and they put a lot of stuff right in front of our faces. You know, a lot of the sacred geometry that exists in many lodges are right out there in the open for everyone to see. And so it lets us know who the builders, quote unquote, of this reality are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, these guys have known for a fact that this has been a matrix, that this is a matrix. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, a lot of people don't think of the reasons why, if we look back and see the pyramid, why would there be a bunch of codes inside the pyramids? Why would there be a bunch of hieroglyphs inside the pyramids? Why would the Bible give us a code like 666 and tell us that this is the mark of the beast, okay, as opposed to describing us what the beast may look like? Me personally, I would rather know. I'd rather have someone come up to me and say, okay, there's a beast coming. It's an antichrist. It looks like this, and it's going to get you, okay? As opposed to telling me that I have to look for a number. Now, why would I look for a number? Numbers are only good for computations, and computations are usually performed by computers. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the thing is they've known for a long time that this is a matrix. They've actually dangled it in front of us, even with the Bible and all of our entertainment. You understand that even the Bible and stuff like that has been revised by the very same people. So the people who we once considered to be the elites, like the clerics, the ones who were translating all of the texts, and the ones who were educated enough to do so, well, those were the people who were left with all the secrets of what the codes actually meant, with what the hieroglyphs actually meant. So the thing is it is a game to the illuminated factions at times, and don't hate these people, by the way, people. Do not hate them. No matter what, they're flesh and blood. They're our brethren just like anybody else. And if you look at this place and understand what it truly is, it's a game. Mm-hmm. So we can either take the game really seriously, or we can see it as a game and understand that these people are doing things a certain way because if they didn't, we wouldn't have this polarity thing that exists. We wouldn't have this thing called free will.
Right.
So the thing is never hate these people, understand who they are and what it is that they do. Yes, a lot of these people are psychopaths, okay? While they are on this planet and they're playing the role that they're playing, they're pretty psychotic. But in the end, they're playing a role. And it's just part of the whole game. Now, when it comes to Hollywood, you said the second part of the question was, what is it Hollywood's trying to achieve, or...
Yeah, how is it affecting us subconsciously? Is it a negative thing, or how? I mean, first of all, why do they do it, and how do you think we can kind of get around it? You know.
Well, you can look at it in a variety of different ways. Okay, one reason why they would do it. Let's just say that there are illuminated factions on a positive side, as opposed to what we considered always to be a negative side. Maybe there are limited factions on the positive side that what they're doing is they're working to help the people who are there and able to wake up so that they can actually perform the functions of helping the collective consciousness. I can say this for sure, movies played a very strong instrumental role in the way I was able to awaken myself, because I would have an experience, and the next thing you know, I'd watch a movie and see almost an identical thing within that movie of an experience that I had, and I'd be like, oh my God. Okay, and so bit by bit, piece by piece, it actually helps to raise the collective consciousness in terms of intellect. Okay, so you start to look, the types of people that they would appeal to are the people who can actually take and connect dots together. Okay, and the people who can connect the dots together, those are the people who will find themselves in a position of evolution, okay? And so now, on the flip end of it, the very same thing that could be used to free someone could also be used to control someone.
Yeah.
So if we take a look and see the way society operates, society as itself, if you think about it, almost everyone is in their own self bubble. So everyone is now so consumed with and self-absorbed, okay, that they don't really see anything out there going on in the first place. You got to keep in mind that the negative factions, they like to foster that. They want to foster ignorance, okay? Now, if you take the idea that entertainment can be both liberating and it can also enslave you, okay, you can see how that with the very thing that maybe will wake up someone like you or me, or someone like Kyle or anyone else, will be the very thing that scares someone else right back into their hole.
Yeah.
This world can't be a matrix. No, 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 no. Okay? I'm going to turn that off because that's just entertainment. That doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
Okay? Self-absorption is the very thing that the illuminated factions really push, especially on Western societies. Other places, not so much, because other places aren't spoiled like Western societies. But through us, they can actually earn a whole lot of money with that control. They can earn a whole lot of money with that fear. They can take that and they can actually create entire belief systems around it. Okay?
Right.
And that's the reason why we've got religion now. Religion is an entire belief system which can be used literally to make you go to war. Okay? It can literally, you'll turn around and try to control everyone around you according to what your beliefs are. So if my religion, say, is Christianity, I'll do my best to spread that around. It's good for institutional control. If you think about what the Matrix really is about, and it's funny because the movie Matrix says it, it's about control, right? Well, even us, if we're trying to maintain self-control, we're still trying to maintain some sort of control. I teach self-mastery, which is self-control, so that way one can help other people. One can be in control of oneself and help other people. But then there's also the fact of being a controller. And so these are the things that they instill within all of us. Now, certain people are going to evolve and certain people aren't. And I do believe that no matter what, it serves a purpose in the collective consciousness. Okay? Because those who do evolve are going to help everyone around them that they can to evolve. and to also go forward. Matter of fact, I mean, I can't tell you all the times where I was almost like, I don't know, thrown in mental institutions or beaten up because I'm sitting there trying to tell people, hey, the world is like this. Look at all the things that you can do. This is what's actually going on. But you know, the way the world operates isn't necessarily conducive to those who are trying to evolve. So what do? We find people of like mind, and then we spread the knowledge. And so when I was younger, I would kind of talk to everybody. Now that I'm a bit older and a lot more wise, you know, I let the like minds find me, and then I do my best to educate them and push them forward to do the same thing to others or for others.
Right, right. And you were also part of the music industry a few years back. So what lessons did you learn from there, or is there anything you learned from there?
Oh yeah, I mean, I will tell you this. In order, and this is for all aspiring musicians, this is for all aspiring people who want to go out and be actors, whatever. If you end up going and you want to be a representative of that system, the machine and the people who run that machine are going to make you jump through certain hoops to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, they're not going to give you anything for free. And I can tell you this right now, me personally, I got to find out the hard way that they, in fact, do expect you to sign over soul properties in order to be a representative, in order to be rich, wealthy, famous, and to be represented by like Universal Records or Capitol Records or whatever. Same thing actors have to do. Were you about ready to ask something?
Yeah, what do you mean by oversold properties?
Soul. You're selling your soul.
And what does that exactly mean?
Well, the essence which drives our body, okay, the very thing which is within us that makes us who we are and that animates everything around us, that would be our soul, that would be our macabre field, that would be our energy, everything that we are. And the thing is if you intend, the way the system looks at it, if you intend to be a representative of that system, okay, and it's going to reward you with all of this stuff. It'll give you the illusion of having wealth, riches, and everything else, but you have to sign your essence over to them. So, like, for instance, you'll see that, not long ago, Britney Spears, do you remember that whole thing?
Yeah, okay. The Madonna, Britney Spears, ritual, and all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, well, she had, if you remember, just after that Madonna ritual and everything, she went down this really bad spiral where she shaved off her hair and everything. Well, it turns to find out she was trying to get away from her controllers, the handlers, okay?
Yeah, and isn't that what happened with Michael Jackson too, right?
You're getting it. As a matter of fact, there's also Eminem. He talks about it in a song called My Darling. Michael Jackson talks about it. Singer from Tool talks about it. There's plenty of singers out there that will actually talk about it. And if I'm not mistaken, you can look up Bob Dylan on YouTube, and it says, all you have to do is type in Bob Dylan admits selling his soul. And Bob Dylan right there tells you, I sold my soul in order to have the lifestyle that I have.
So what do they do? Like, let's say I'm a big musician and I agree to that. What are they going to do with that soul of mine?
Well, they use it over and over. It's energy, right? Your soul is energy, correct?
Right, right.
Well, energy, this is the same thing, like, say, for instance, why do churches need worship? Because it's putting out energy.
Okay, right.
Okay, so, and that's energy which is harvestable. Now, think about this, okay? I'm going to give you an example of one person, Tupac Shakur.
Yeah.
Not long ago, Tupac Shakur was killed, correct?
Right, yeah.
But yet, we can still dial Tupac Shakur up on YouTube, and if you noticed, it wasn't that long ago, he performed at the Coachella, but he's dead, right?
Right, right.
They had his mirage, okay, whatever you want to call it, his hologram performing. Once you sign,
I saw that on YouTube, sorry.
Once you sign, you're always signed with them, which means at that particular point, even in your death, you're still performing for your owners. That's what that means.
So they're kind of sucking out more of your energy doesn't matter whether you're alive or dead. I mean, once they have your soul, they pretty much can suck. And the more powerful and the more famous the person, the more energy. So that's why they try to buy it.
Absolutely.
Right,
And even
because
oh, go ahead.
yeah, because those powerful, famous people, they not only have their energy, but they have the energy of their fans, right?
That's exactly what I was getting ready to go to. Is they have the energy of the fans, because that's the whole thing. Is they're not just absorbing from the artists. What they want are artists that know how to control their audiences. They can extract all that. See, that's the thing is, when record companies go for music artists, I can tell you this, they're not necessarily going for people who have talent. They're going for people who have energetic control.
Right.
Okay? And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to get people, if they can own this person, and this person can control 1,000 people over here, then they're controlling 1,001 people. They're not just controlling this.
Yeah, right.
So
Wow.
that's the whole thing, is they're very smart. They're very intelligent in how they do what they do. But the thing is if we take that too seriously, then we can't enjoy our music anymore, can we? We can't really enjoy any of our shows or any things that we do anymore. But you have to realize that everything that we get here in this world comes at a price from something else. So, yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I was going to say that it all comes down to the subtle energies. Like, for example, in case of the entertainment industry, we can't see those subtle energies which they want to tap into, right? And that's why they can play those games, because they probably have very powerful technologies to suck that energy out, which we cannot see because we don't have those powers. So that's where these powers come into the picture, or I won't say powers, but abilities, where once we have these abilities, psychic abilities, we can tap into that power, and then if somebody's trying to misuse or take away our power, we can straight away say that. Also, we can give away our positive powers to other people, share it with other people. So that's where that's what it comes down to, right?
Absolutely. So you have to be very careful, and this is the reason why I teach people really to control themselves, to master themselves, so that way that they're not someone else's energetic mill, that they're not at the mercy of someone else's game or universe, for that matter. You never want to be at the end of someone else's will. You always want to be, in control of your own system. Okay, and so part of the game here is for you to give up your system, your free will, so that way that they can control your energy. And most people, because they have no idea of what they're even inside of or what it is that they're supposed to be down here doing in terms of mastering themselves, they just end up doing the recycle game over and over and over again. And so that energy gets used, they die, then they get reincarnated right back here, they die, they get reincarnated, and the cycle goes over and over.
So you think we can put an end to that cycle and move to like a higher plane or higher dimension if we master our energies that way?
Well, absolutely. For every person that wakes up, it becomes exponential. And the other thing is every single person is in control of their own energy signature. There is no one out there that can control them. There's no one that can take anything away from them. So what ends up happening is the more people that we wake up, eventually a collective that can no longer be controlled, they just by default create a new system, because they're literally honing their ability to create. And most of us who are waking up are tired of the violence. We're tired of the hatred. We're tired of all the discord. And so we're starting to create something better, something more beautiful. And the way I look at the world is I want to be unified with you. I want to be great friends with you, regardless of age, color, creed, any of that stuff. No separation there. I just want to be friends and be happy and have love. And I've noticed that a lot of the people who are now awakening, one of the reasons why they are awakening is because they feel the same way.
Right. And going back to the movie Lucy, I remember we had a conversation about that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how the world is all, the universe is all codes, and especially the binary code, zeros and ones, and how we can tap into it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, everything, first and foremost, most people don't understand that energy in of itself is actually digital by nature. A lot of people would imagine it to be analog, but it's actually digital by nature. Now, how this would operate, if we're in a matrix, and a lot of people have a hard time conceiving this, I'll make it really easy. When we look up into space, what we see are stars, and these stars are separated by massive amounts of distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, some are closer than others, but what we see are perfectly arrayed points, okay? Well, what those are, if you were an artist, I myself am an artist, so when I draw a picture, what I do first is I grid the picture up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think of stars, and you think of them correctly, they're points of light, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Points of light, that's all they are, really.
Yeah.
And those points of light have a tremendous amount of mass,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Well, you could think of those as anchor points, okay? Now, if I were to draw something in its perfect perspective, again, I'm going to grid it completely up, so that way everything is in its proper place and it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Well, that's what the universe thinks when it is creating matrices or other worlds, okay? So it is now gridded up its entire area. Now, what we're seeing, because we're seeing it from the inside and we're looking out, we're not looking at it from the outside in, we're looking at it from the inside out. We're seeing all that empty construct space up there, which hasn't been developed yet, as space and time, okay? All the stars are doing is they're holding points together until a new creation gets made. Now, if we were to take any one of those points, okay, it's just kind of like a sweater. Let's just say we just knocked out one of the stars up there. We decided to knock out Sirius. What do you think is going to happen to this universe if we did that? If we were able to get rid of Sirius tonight, what would happen to the universe?
Yeah, it would affect everything, yeah.
That's right. Just like a grid point, it would start to unravel every last little thing in this universe.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, those points of light, again, think about this now. If we use a laser, oftentimes, unless you got like a green or a blue one, if you use a red laser, oftentimes you don't see that laser going, but you can see the point that it makes on the wall, right? But you don't get to see in between, just the point that it makes on the wall.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about every single star that's out there, all those stars are focused into one point. Call that Earth, because that's what Earth is. It is E equals mc squared, right? Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, okay?
Yeah.
So the more light threading that you have, with all these stars pointed in one direction, like a magnifying glass, the more you get the idea or the illusion of matter. Okay, so the heavier the threading, the more matter that there is, the more density that there is. Okay,
Right.
so oftentimes people don't think of it that way, but that's what we're actually in. We're in something where light is crisscrossing over each other at all times in order to create certain things. Again, my body in of itself has as much energy running through it as, say, this, speed of light squared. Okay, so at that point, again, energy just interacting with energy. And even if we have the appearance of being solid, we still have any amounts of energy that is coming off of our body, and all that stuff can be projected. And so the thing is if we look at things extremely carefully, when we can see it all through our way of life. Matrix, again, is mathematics, numerics. Everywhere we go, no matter where we look, we're looking at numbers, correct? Everywhere we go. What would be the point if it didn't have some sort of value on a computational level?
Yeah, that's how we differentiate things, right? Like, otherwise everything would be the same.
Exactly. And so it is all around us. It shows us this every single day, but a lot of times people don't really take into account how literal it is. And so the one thing that we all have to remember, if everyone actually studied what E equals mc squared means, then none of this would be, and this would not be a surprise to us, because everything is light, everything is energy, everything is frequency, and one frequency will always affect another frequency. It's only a matter of mathematics.
Right, and that's where I feel that technology comes into the picture, how technology is not only helping us to communicate with each other in a faster way, but it's also helping us to learn more about how the universe works. Like, for example, the binary code, zeros and ones. And that's how the atoms or cells in the universe work. Either they're on or they're off, and that's how we can differentiate.
That's right.
What we see and between one thing and another, right?
That's right. And so, you know, it's a lot easier of a concept than most people give it credit for, but I think what it really boils down to is most people don't want to believe it yet. So oftentimes this will perplex them in the sense of they don't think that there's any way that it's real because they're so used to living the idea that they're in a biological environment, but they fail to understand what could make a biological environment real. Light, of course.
Right, right. And where do you think we're going with the technology as humanity? Like, you think that it could be misused? I mean, I'm sure it is being misused. Like, for example, they're talking about transhumanism, how they would have androids or robots that they could use for war and stuff like that. What are your views on that?
Well, we already are in a stage where they're abusing things, that's for sure. If you look at heart technologies, I can, regardless of what people want to say out there, there's a lot of people out there that's like, oh, heart can do this or heart can't do that. I can tell you now emphatically for sure it can control the weather, and they have for sure used it to harm people. You got things like the Large Hadron Collider, okay, a 17-mile particle accelerator, which they're stretching even further. I think it's even going double that length here shortly. Mm-hmm. And again, it's one of those things, a lot of people don't understand what something like that could actually be used for. It's accelerating particles. Where? They say down in that 17-mile range, but the fact of the matter is that has an effect. It reverberates outward. So yes, transhumanism is the reason why all these technologies pop up, Lokesh, is number one, the negative side, the negative polarity. One of the reasons why they create technologies like this, like the Large Hadron Collider or like HART technologies, is because they cannot plug in themselves. If they were to do what you and I do, which is meditate and plug into the collective consciousness to do all this, then they'll realize that they're one, and then the game is over. They won't be able to participate and do the things that they're doing and becoming rich and wealthy and everything. So what they do is they create machines to do for them what they can actually do just by plugging in. And so the thing is what they're going to end up doing is they're getting other people, they're getting the bulk of society to go along with this very same program. Well, oh, if we put this chip in your head, you'll be able to access this, you'll be able to do that, you'll be able to interact with all your computers, you'll be able to play with holograms in here. Well, that's stuff that we can already do. But basically what they're doing is for all the people who are not aware enough to understand how those technologies operate and why they operate the way they do, they're going to get the majority of society hooked on that other side, okay, with the transhumanism as opposed to self-mastery, which they could actually do that all by themselves without the need for any chips, without the need for any additional access like that. So it's kind of interesting. They're going to have here in the future, and yes, they're definitely going to use it for negative purposes. So it's going to be interesting that here in the future, there's going to be the split of people who, well, actually, it'll probably be a three-way split. People who do nothing, people who meditate and are able to connect and do it by themselves without anything, and then the people who do it with whatever means technology that they provide. And so it's going to be a very interesting time here in about the next 10 years or so to see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. The way we're going so fast, like time is moving so fast. We're doing things in 1 year, probably wouldn't have imagined in 100 years, doing those kind of things these days. And that's very interesting stuff that you're telling us. So before we end the show, I want to just ask you, is there anything else you want to tell us about your upcoming plans, your school and teachings and stuff like that you're doing?
Sure. Again, the site is www.evolveministry.com. And again, this site is going to be very strong and comprehensive. It's going to have quite a few things coming. Again, we're going to have a forum. Forum is very important because people can do their networking. We're going to have gaming, and I think it's very important that people actually learn how to do certain types of games because it teaches a lot about hand-and-eye coordination, and it sharpens the mind. Then we're going to have, again, an educational system which is properly teaching people mathematics, properly teaching people about physics and the electromagnetic spectrum, something that a lot of people aren't getting these days, I can tell you that for sure. And then the proper things about anatomy. So all of these things are going to be used and are going to be very instrumental for people to perfect themselves and to understand how their own body systems work and how their energetic systems work with their mind, body, and spirit. And so that's what we've got coming. I eventually intend to, at some point in life, to have a physical location. But right now, what we're doing is we're trying to just pound this out with the site, and then people are welcome to come and train with me face to face. Yes, it does cost, and the site itself will cost money. It'll be $39.95, and there's also a $19.95 version as well, where you can get forum access, and the $39.99 is the full access. So.
Right. So, are you going to have like video lessons, or how are you going to teach that?
Not only will there be video lessons, there's also going to be a curriculum. There's going to be a curriculum set up on software where you can actually trace your own progress on the site. So going from one stage to the next, you know, let's just call it going from a novice student to an intermediate. You'll be able to look on that site and see and know exactly when and what things that you have to do in order to accomplish those things.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, Michael, that's great. That's a lot of great information we got today, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon when your school is up and running, and we can talk more about your, how things are going.
Great. Well, Lokesh, I love you, man. Feel free to call me and contact me anytime.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Talk to you soon. Take care. Thanks.
Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.